The Galactic Empire's starcruisers drifted above the scorched ruins of Earth's final orbital station, their crimson banners fluttering in simulated gravity like declarations of divine conquest. Inside the lead dreadnought, silence reigned. Soldiers stood at attention, encased in armor forged from the alloys of dead worlds, watching the lone figure being escorted down the hall. General Adira Kane didn't flinch. Her uniform, white, unmarred, pressed, clung to her like the final breath of a civilization that refused to kneel. Her boots struck the floor in rhythmic defiance, echoing louder than the whispered awe of the Imperial troopers. Behind her, 24 rifles were trained on her spine. She had no weapons, no shield, and by all accounts, no hope. Yet she walked like a thunderhead. They brought her to the command chamber, a cathedral of war, its ceiling stretching high above like the throat of a monster. Holographic maps of 100 subjugated systems flickered in the air, displaying victory upon victory. And there, seated like a spider in the center of a galactic web, was Supreme Commander Vorax Thulan. General Kane, he greeted with theatrical reverence, his voice distorted by the breathing apparatus grafted to his ruined jaw. Earth has fallen. Humanity is extinct in all but name. You are its final echo. She didn't answer. Her eyes, pale steel, scanned the room. 27 officers, tactical staff, multiple guards. She noted exits, timings, probabilities. The Empire had captured her, but it hadn't broken her. Vorax gestured and a technician stepped forward with a small case. For formality's sake. You are accused of leading resistance in violation of Galactic Subjugation Directive 17B. The penalty, of course, is death. Any final words? She smiled. Not with her mouth was still. It was her presence that smiled, like a blade knowing it would soon be unsheathed. 17 seconds, she said. The technician hesitated. What? Adira repeated, 17 seconds. Vorax tilted his head. To beg for mercy? No, she said softly. That's how long it will take me to kill you. Laughter erupted from the surrounding officers. Harsh. Derisive. Vorax's own grin split wide. 70 kinetic darts, he said. I doubt you'll even feel the first one before your spine liquefies. She tilted her head. You should have made it 71. He gave the order. The rifles fired. 70 darts tore through her chest, shoulders, legs, heart. She staggered. Blood sprayed across the polished obsidian floor. Her body twisted with each impact. She dropped to one knee. Officers laughed louder, some already turning away. That was mistake one. Her right arm flicked forward. A sliver of metal, flattened, unassuming, embedded in the technician's throat. The body dropped, revealing her hand, now pulsing with faint, unnatural blue lines. Subdermal kinetic redirection, illegal tech. Experimental. No one survived more than 10 shot. She took 70. She moved. The 2 nearest guards didn't even draw a breath before she shattered their windpipes. She ripped a sidearm from one as he fell and dropped 3 officers with perfect shots to the eye. Vorax stood frozen, his grin collapsing into disbelief as the holodables exploded with misfire from his panicked staff. 13 seconds left. Adira vaulted over the command terminal. A guard aimed. She shot through his barrel, causing the weapon to explode in his grip. His screams barely echoed before she embedded her knife into the throat of the next. A general reached for an alarm. His hand hit the floor before he did. Another tried to run. He got 2 steps. That was enough. 6 seconds. The chamber spun with sirens now. Security turrets dropped from the ceiling, but they paused, AI stuck in conflict, unsure whether to shoot her or risk damaging their own officers. She didn't pause. She sprinted through the chaos, boots leaving crimson arcs behind her. Vorax finally reached for the kill switch under his seat. 3 seconds. She leapt, driving her heel into his hand. Bones crunched. He roared. Her other hand closed around his collar, lifting him half off his throne. 1 second. 17, she whispered. Her palm opened. Inside was a pulse charge. She forced it into his chest and kicked him across the room. The blast incinerated the throne and half the command chamber. When the smoke cleared, she was gone. 25 of the 27 officers were dead. The other 2 crawled, bleeding and broken, toward escape. Adira Kane didn't run. She walked through the shredded steel doors, smoke curling off her uniform. Her wounds sealed by micromesh. Her pulse steady. One eye was burned blind, but the other gleamed. She passed stunned soldiers in the hall. None dared move. She didn't spare them a glance. Her message was already written in their silence. By the time the Empire announced her death to the wider galaxy, half their border colonies had already received her coordinates and her declaration. Resistance wasn't dying. It had just been born again. News traveled fast, but the truth moved faster. It spread in hushed taverns on fringe planets, in coded messages between pirates, smugglers, and rebels. Adira Kane wasn't just alive, she had killed the Supreme Commander in 17 seconds after being shot 70 times. The math didn't make sense. But neither did Earth's survival in the First War. Neither did humans pushing back fleets with inferior tech. And yet, it kept happening. The story reached the warlords of Theta Draconis. They laughed, until their orbital base turned up dark and silent the next day. It reached the insectoid traders of Vixora. They placed bets on her death, only for their station to receive a personal transmission. "She's real," the captain of a bounty cruiser said, eyes haunted. "I saw her walk through fire. We left behind her body. But she wasn't dead. She was waiting." The Empire dispatched assassins. None returned. They declared martial law in 3 sectors. Riots broke out in 5. Adira Kane didn't organize the uprisings. She didn't need to. Her myth did the work. Rebels took up her name. Pirate crews painted her emblem on their ship. Colonies she'd never touched began broadcasting her final words. "You should have made it 71. Meanwhile, in the deep void between stars, Adira stood on the deck of a stolen scout vessel, armor-clad and quiet. Her body bore the scars of 70 impact. But her mind remained unbroken. Beside her, a holomap flickered with growing resistance signals. A whisper escaped her lips. 17 more worlds. The ship jumped to warp. The fire was already roaring when General Kane stepped through the breach into the central command deck of the Imperial Dreadnought. Her boots crunched over shattered steel and bone, each step another declaration that nothing alive on this ship outranked her anymore. The bodies that once wore the Empire's insignia were either cooling or screaming. The last screams would be brief. The Empire's inner sanctum reeked of desperation and molten circuitry. What was once the pride of the Outer Ring fleet now collapsed under its own delusion. Kane's assault had fractured their command in under 20 minutes. Her team, small, surgical, terrifying, had split from her, striking vital targets in perfect silence. They didn't need to report back. If they were still breathing, the mission was still active. If not, she'd completed herself. An Imperial War analyst tried to scramble for a sidearm, but Kane didn't break stride. She moved like thunder, unclipping a shard pistol from her hip and putting a hole through his head without looking. The blast echoed like punctuation. Precision. Motion. Elimination. The throne at the far end of the command deck turned. Commander Trivan rose from it with the grace of someone who had never lost a battle and didn't know how to fear one. He wore ceremonial crimson armor with polished black trim, a relic of authority. Kane's white uniform was burned at the edges, flecked with ash and blood. Her authority was what remained when relics had failed. "You shouldn't be alive," Trivan said, voice steady, eyes scanning her form as if memorizing an anomaly. "You shouldn't be standing," Kane answered. He raised a plasma blade. "Your death will stabilize the Empire." She pulled a heat knife free from her belt and flicked it on. "That's what your last 3 admirals said." The charge between them was silent. Then velocity erupted. Trivan lunged, his blade arcing in a vertical cleave. Kane ducked, spun, and slammed her boot into his ankle. The commander staggered. Her knife kissed his ribs, slicing through ceremonial trim like tissue. He twisted and struck with a backhand, catching her shoulder. She absorbed the hit, twisted inside his guard, and drove her knee into his throat. He choked, stumbling back, eyes now watering with understanding. Cain advanced. "You're not a soldier," he rasped. "You're extinction." "I'm consequence," she replied. His blade slashed across her stomach, carving sparks from the metal threads of her combat weave. She grunted, pivoted off the pain, and caught his wrist. With a single twist, she shattered the joint. The blade fell. Her knife buried into his collarbone. He gasped. "You think killing me changes the Empire?" "I don't care about change," she said, twisting the blade. "I'm here to erase." When his body hit the floor, her heartbeat didn't even spike. The silence that followed was earned. Cain retrieved a comm disk from the corpse and activated it. Confirm Triven neutralized. Uploading command codes. Back on Earth, the human command assembly watched as their most wanted target disappeared from Imperial networks. Their response was a coordinated purge of remaining fleet channels. The Empire had lost its center. Its dreadnoughts were now blind. Within an hour, Cain reboarded the dropship through the flaming hangar she'd left in ruin. Her team had reassembled. None untouched. None defeated. Sarge tossed her a medpack. That last corridor got spicy. "Not for long," Cain said, treating the gash on her side with a wince. "Triven's dead." Mira grinned, cracked helmet still sparking. "Then this war's about to get short." "Not short," Cain said, glancing toward the stars beyond the hangar doors. "Just louder." The dropship rocketed away from the Imperial dreadnought as the last of its internal reactors began to overheat. Chain reactions rippled. Lights died. Gravity faltered. And then, in the silence of the void, the ship that once held 7 planetary defense secrets tore itself apart. As the debris scattered into the abyss, Cain's voice was already back in mission mode. "Next target's in the Zephan cluster. Admiral Stathis. Get me his coordinate. He's got 72 hours left to breathe." No one questioned her math. No one asked if she was ready. 17 seconds. That's how long she'd needed to dismantle a command structure built over a century. In the recordings that leaked later, soldiers watching the footage had no idea how to classify what she was. To some, she was the last vanguard of a dying human rage. To others, she was proof of why the Empire feared humanity from the start. But the most accurate assessment came from a silent Imperial intelligence log buried deep in one of the shattered dreadnought's surviving black boxes. General Alina Cain is not a tactical asset. She is not a person. She is an extinction-level protocol. And we triggered her. On Earth, the broadcasts of the battle played without narration. No one dared try to give voice to what she'd done. In the outer colonies, insurgents rose. On Imperial prison moons, captives began to riot. On neutral trade stations, non-human captains disabled tracking software and erased human exile alerts from their navmap. Because fear moved faster than ship. And now, the galaxy understood one truth. Humanity did not bluff. Humanity did not forget. Humanity sent messages with steel. And when they came, when they sent her, it wasn't for diplomacy. It was because someone needed to be erased. And she never missed. Alina Cain sat in silence as the tactical overlays streamed across the inside of her visor. The Empire's command lattice had shattered, but she knew the cleanup was where real wars were won. What they destroyed in Section 2 was the heart. Now came the nerves, the spine, the desperate tendrils clawing for structure. Commander Triven's death had sent tremors across 5 sectors. Now fleets drifted, admirals turned off their comms, and warlords clawed at the vacuum left behind. They were never afraid of humans dying. They were afraid of humans surviving. Cain and her unit had proven that again. And again. And again. She watched as the decrypted data stream fed her new target. 3 names. All flagged red. All previously unreachable. Now they were fleeing. which meant they could be hunted. First was Admiral Stathis, orbital fortress near Zephan Prime. Kane's drop-in was detected before she left orbit. The fortress fired everything: missile nets, energy spears, atmospheric destabilizers. She walked through the outer ring with 3 surviving members. When they reached the inner sanctum, Stathis tried to trigger a failsafe. The failsafe exploded 5 seconds late. She tore his spine from his body and left it on the command table. The broadcast feed didn't buffer. That wasn't accidental. Second was High Speaker Velra. She was a diplomat, a shadow manipulator, and the financier of the Empire's child assimilation program. She'd never worn a uniform, never stood on a battlefield, but her signature was on every campaign that glassed civilian world. She believed her wealth could buy immunity. Kane bought a mercenary fleet with her own bounty, then executed Velra on a livestream watched by 2 billion citizens across a dozen fringe worlds. Her final words were not screams. She had none. Her throat was already gone. The last was Admiral Vorseth, Treven's old rival, a tactician with no mercy. He was ready for her, built a fortress in the wreckage of a neutron star, shielded it with singularity fields, posted entire fleets to guard his approach. When Kane arrived, she let them shoot. They thought she was alone. They didn't see what followed. Humanity had been quiet for too long. The Death Fleet had been idle. No longer. 50,000 ships decloaked behind her. Most had been built in silence. Some were stolen from old allies who no longer remembered their oaths. The Empire never saw the designs. They were weapons built for extinction. Vorseth died before Kane landed. His crew turned on him, surrendered his corpse, then detonated their own engines in disgrace. Kane didn't care about that. She already had what she wanted. Now came the part no one had planned for. She transmitted a single line to human command. Phase Delta confirmed. The code unlocked orbital bunkers on 36 dead colonies, reactivated old AI warlords who had gone dormant under peace treaties, unleashed AI-directed kinetic rods into gas giant mining facilities that secretly powered Empire fleet. Within hours, the economic core of the galaxy ruptured. The Empire tried diplomacy, sent out envoys, flags of truce, negotiators. Kane answered by sending back heads. Her fleet didn't slow. Her crew didn't question. The AI that once governed human command had been decommissioned decades ago. Kane had replaced it. Not digitally. Organically. She didn't lead with code. She led with certainty. And when she gave orders, entire star systems went quiet. The Empire declared her a war criminal. Then a demon. Then a god. The last one stuck. Refugee colonies began carving her name into steel. Pirates painted her symbol onto stolen hulls. And former slaves of the Empire took up arms again, not because they had hope, but because Kane had shown them revenge was alive. The taste was sharper than freedom. One planet detonated its own core just to take an Empire fleet with it. Kane broadcast it with a single caption: "This is what you made us." She was no longer acting under orders. She was the order. Human diplomats stopped trying to leash her. They began sending her demands in code, hoping she'd approve. Sometimes she did. Sometimes she sent a warning instead. The warnings were always ships. The ships always came back empty. The Empire's outer rim shattered. Nobles fled. Former allies began sealing borders. The galactic balance tilted like a fractured moon. And then the message came. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. From a race older than the Empire. Observers. Watchers. Entities that had seen wars rise and fall for millennia without interfering. They wanted to speak. Kane didn't reply. She boarded a stealth shuttle, flanked by her most silent assassins, and traveled alone. The meeting wasn't recorded. It wasn't even acknowledged by either side. But after it, Kane returned. Her ship burned at the edges, her armor scarred by something not made by weapons. And her eyes held a weight even her crew didn't question. She said nothing for 2 days. Then she issued her final command. Target origin world of the Empire. Eradicate. No survivors. No transmissions. Some within her own fleet hesitated. Some whispered rebellion. They were found dismembered within hours. Not by her. By the crew who remained loyal. The assault took 6 hours. The core planet that gave birth to the Galactic Empire turned into glass. Every city. Every spire. Every monument. Atomized. The surface boiled for days. The star dimmed. Afterward, Kane stood aboard the observation deck of her flagship. Alone. Reports came in. Former enemies requesting ceasefires. Fringe worlds declaring independence. Slave planets naming her their queen. Mercenary guilds swearing fealty. She declined all of them. Then she vanished. No trace. No signals. No heat trails. Just a silence deeper than war. Some say she ascended. Others think she was retrieved by the Watchers. A few believe she sleeps beneath a forgotten moon, waiting for the galaxy to repeat its mistake. But one fact remained universal. 17 seconds. That's all it took to turn a myth into extinction. And every species that studied the fall of the Galactic Empire now wrote the same line in their war manuals. If you shoot a human 70 times, make sure none of them survive. Because if they do, the galaxy belongs to them. And they don't share.